Well, welcome back to Left, Right, and You. When State Rep Dennis Rebelletti... Thanks, Dave. When State Rep Dennis Rebelletti gives us a call, we'll let him join us. In the meantime, Tim and Alan, which subject would you rather tackle right now, Egypt or healthcare?
Dancing girl? Oh, sorry.
No, Egypt or healthcare?
We could talk. I mean, I would like to talk about healthcare because, and you know what? I think I'd ask you a few questions.
Why don't you two discuss the most recent things that have gone on in healthcare?
And
have at it, guys.
Alan is an attorney, so I don't know.
I play one on TV,
but you don't practice. But what happens now? We have two liberal judges, federal judges, Democratic-appointed judges that's voted that this was illegal. Now we have two conservative Republican federal judges. And I understand in the federal courts you can file a federal lawsuit anywhere you want to file it. So now we have 2-2, and they've said that the one said this is illegal. So what's the next step? Did I lay the groundwork
I would imagine
that
at some point in time it's going to have to go to the Supreme Court for them to decide it.
Now, I was watching Greta last night because my wife was watching, and she was making me watch it. And she had about 5 attorney generals on, and she said, look, we could bypass all these appellate courts and all these, and correct me because I'm not a lawyer, but she said that if both sides say, let's just go to the Supreme Court, they could, in 60 days, could go to the U.S. Supreme Court and this can get decided. And the attorney generals that she chose said that if they don't and they have to go through the appellate process, the damage will be done. The states will have to put in this infrastructure for this health care bill.
What do you mean damage? You mean putting it into effect?
All the money that they're going to set up the administration and the bureaucrats and not the risk pools, I call them risk pools, the exchanges. And then if the Supreme Court finally does rule in 2013, December of 2013, the month before it's supposed to go into effect, the damage will be done. But she said that they could waive all that stuff.
Or the good will be done, depending on which way you look
Well,
at it.
It depends, yeah.
Right.
I personally think it's terrible, but and I've said this before, and Paul he'll raise his eyes now when I say this, I think health care should be available to everybody. Medical insurance is a different issue.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, first of all, I think it's
a
political
lot.
issue. I don't even know. They can call it a tax. They can call it a service fee. They can call it something.
No, but for legally, what happens now? What could happen? I mean, is it going to go through another system of courts, and can they just go? Let's go to the Supreme
Court.
Just to refresh, okay. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so people understand that this lawsuit by these attorney generals that all got together, they filed it in Florida, and what the Florida court ruled was that the mandate to buy insurance was unconstitutional, and it could not be severed from the rest of the bill because that was a primary funding for the bill. Therefore, the entire bill or the entire law is unconstitutional, and that's the latest ruling from a court. So that's my understanding of what the court ruled from what I read and what I saw. So, Tim, if I understand it, your next question is, okay, is the U.S. Justice Department now going to file an appeal against that ruling, or could the two parties get together and say, hey, let's not monkey around, let's get to the Supreme Court and decide this?
Yeah,
sort of where we're at? Okay.
Yeah, right. Well, the Supreme Court, I believe, can always decide to take it.
Do they have to go through the steps of the appellate courts and whatever is...
Well, usually you have to go through the steps, but I believe the
know.
Supreme Court could decide that they want to take it.
Okay.
And listen to it. If somebody... I'm not sure how the procedure is, but I believe that that's how it can be done. But
okay. No, I don't know either. Maybe it's something we should research and talk about next week.
But I would imagine, regardless of the steps you have to go through, it is going to end up as a Supreme Court case.
Okay. Maybe we ought to do some research and talk about this next week, because it's not going away.
No, it's not going to
go away. So,
and do you believe that people who are just opposed to the health care bill in general believe it's unconstitutional, and those who are for it will automatically say it is constitutional? I mean, do you think it's drawn just that simply?
Well, people like to validate their biases, so I would say yes. A lot of that is true, no question about it.
Let me interrupt. Let me interrupt everybody and start over. Alan, what's your opinion about the health care bill? Because I don't think we've ever gotten you on record. You're on record with Tim and Paul.
Look, I haven't read the 2,000 pages, but I know that we need health reform.
Right.
And this is a start. Now, just because you have a bill doesn't mean you can't improve the bill.
Well, it's a law, though. It's not just a bill; it's a law.
Well, the law.
No, I understood.
But they can improve the law, and it probably needs to be improved. There's nothing wrong with that. But government being as it is, and the contentiousness in Washington being as it is, then they don't tend to work in that way. The Republicans just want to say it's unconstitutional, it's no good. Let's throw the whole thing out and start over. And the Democrats are going to argue that it's great, it's good for everybody. Let's not start over and let's enforce it and get moving on it. And it's really, to me, a lot of what's going on is just simply politics as usual.
Yeah, and again, I mean, as far as health care, I know you and I have talked about this before. I think everybody's entitled to health care. I think everybody should have a basic health care plan, and people shouldn't have to worry about getting overwhelmed with bills. And I agree with Steve.
With that.
When you talk about a basic health care plan, you've said that a bunch of times, and so maybe you could be a little bit more specific and tell me if you were the Grand Poobah, and you could sit down and say, okay, everyone in the United States is going to have this level of health care. What would you provide?
Well, it's interesting.
As the Grand
and
Poobah.
let me just say one thing. Kudos to President Peerwinkle with what she did in the budget, and she cut back. They took the county health care system, which is basically a free health care system for residents of Cook County. Pretty much people that can't afford medical insurance have access to, things cleaning, teeth cleanings, they have access to it. This is a system that we pay for. Just got my tax bill today, too.
Right.
That we pay for as a county. What I would do is I would improve and fix that system and make that more accessible to people because we're already paying for it. She cut 21% out of the Cook County Hospital healthcare system.
But everybody knows, which was good because it's a bloated system.
Phenomenal. And
So,
I was with this Dorothy Tucker yesterday for an interview. And I said that, and she her eyes kind of rolled up when I talked about Cook County Hospital. I said, look, this is taxpayers' money. It means that we're buying the best MRIs, we're buying the best X-ray machines, the best bedpans, the best beds. We're spending big money because we know how it works in Chicago and definitely in Cook County. Fix that system, and then after you spend our money wisely as taxpayers, then expand into this national health care. Because I agree. One more, and I'll shut up. Steve Rauschenberger said everybody has access to health care. They don't have access to choice, and I agree with him.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, and no, I want to get back to two of the things you said. I wanted to discuss your interview yesterday that was on CBS News here locally, and I want to get back to the idea of the county, because I think that when you talk about the county, you're talking about bringing the decision-making closer to the people who are getting it,
right,
as opposed to the state running it or the federal government running it, the county,
right,
where people are very accountable.
Community-based health.
So I'd like to get back to that. But in the meantime, State Representative Dennis Rebelletti has joined us, and he has just recently been sponsoring a bill that they refer to as Andrea's Law. Hello, U.S. Representative. U.S. I'm moving you up there, Dennis. How's that? State Rep Rebelletti, how are you today?
Austin would like that. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, he may be our next senator, so he may be running in 2014 against Mr. Durbin. But go ahead. I'm sorry. How are you? This is Tim. I apologize, State Rep.
That's okay. Hi, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show and talk to your listeners about Andrea's Law, which I'm sponsoring down in Springfield, which is House Bill 263. If you'd like, I can go a little bit into it.
We'd like to,
give us the background and give us the background of it, and give us how it came about and what you hope to accomplish.
Well, it came to me, a mutual friend of mine and Patricia Rosenberg, who is the mother of Andrea Will, who was murdered senselessly by her ex-boyfriend down in Charleston, Illinois, back in 1998, talked to me about the pending release of Justin Boulay, who was the now convicted murderer, who was released back in November. And in his case, what happened was he missed the truth in sentencing portion. The Illinois General Assembly back in 98 passed truth in sentencing that said murderers would have to serve, I believe at that time it would be 85% or 100% of their sentence. Because there was an issue with the single subject law of the Illinois Constitution, as we see today in the Capitol bill that was recently overturned by the appellate court, the section regarding truth in sentencing was overturned, and people like Boulay only had to serve 50% of their time. They received day-for-day credit. And as many of your listeners saw and heard, Mr. Boulay was released to his wife, who picked him up in an SUV, and they left for Hawaii for him to start his new life. So what we did was we put together a murderer registry. Right now, the bill is focusing on all of those who have been convicted of first-degree murder prior to June 19th of 1998. And the reason for that is that's when the truth in sentencing was finally corrected by the General Assembly, and the governor signed the new law. And this will help to identify all of those that are released early, and we will be able to track them on a database similar to the sex offender registry, and we also have one for a child murder registry as well. And so that would give pertinent information if you went on to the Illinois State Police database, and you could find out information about where that person resides, where they work, what schools they go to, so that we can keep an eye on these individuals as they would be blending back into our communities, serving only half the time that they actually should have been serving. In Mr. Boulay's case, he received a 24-year sentence from a Coles County judge, and he served 12 years.
12 years for what sounded like almost a stalking-ish sort of domestic murder, which is really a very heinous thing. I mean, that's 12 years only.
Well,
taking a young girl's life.
What happened in that case was they had broken up. They had been dating prior to going to Eastern Illinois University, which I'm also an alum of, and he invited her to his apartment. They had been broken up for about 3 months or so under the guise of giving her a birthday gift. And when she got there, he strangled her with a telephone cord. And then after he murdered her, he actually placed her back into his bed, and cleaned her up as if he put her back to take a nap, and then waited for a period of hours before he called his mother and father up in this area, up in this region, and they came down to get him, and he turned himself into the police.
I have a couple questions, if I may. This is Tim,
Sure.
Representative. Was it first-degree murder he was convicted of?
He was convicted of first-degree murder, yes.
Okay, so because the state legislator or the judicial system didn't have their act together, basically, for whatever reason, the system, I'm not taking a shot at you, but
Right.
the system didn't have their act together. This gentleman got in a loophole and was let out, right? I mean, that's pretty much
That
what
would be
happened.
fair to say. What happened was, with all these truth in sentencing criminal laws were being
Right.
passed in a large bill, there was a bill or a section that dealt with hospital liens. And then there were a number of lawsuits by inmates saying that the single subject provision of the Illinois Constitution was violated. The court agreed with that because hospital liens have nothing to do with the criminal justice system, and tossed the entire law out.
Okay, again, and I mean, you'll notice I'm the more liberal of the people here. Well, maybe, I don't know, Alan's kind of, me and him.
Well, I'm kind of liberal, but, is anybody like this ever rehabilitated? This is obviously a sick person, a
Very
bad
sick,
guy.
yeah.
Could he do it again? Well, I guess, do you take a chance and release him and just suggest that he's actually been rehabilitated?
Well, no, but it's the system, Representative Allen. The system let this guy out. I mean, this guy he's a guy's a murderer. He's
Right.
not. He's going to take advantage of the system.
but-
Well, I can tell you this. Prior to becoming a member of the General Assembly back in 2006, 2007, I was a Will County prosecutor for 8 years. And it is very disconcerting to see people in your courtroom, in felony courtrooms, that have already been released from prison serving first-degree murder sentences out of the surrounding counties and reoffending. So these are actually people that I've already seen reprocessed through the system. So rehabilitating, you like to hope that you can rehabilitate people. I don't know when you deal with murderers if there's ever such a thing as rehabilitation.
Well, and even if there is rehabilitation, that's really irrelevant. There's some things you can't take back.
Right.
There's some things you can't take back, and I think luring another human being into your presence under the guise of friendship or love or safety, and then taking their life is not something that should be forgiven.
But Paul, I'm sorry. You know what? I don't disagree with you. The guy's a scumbag.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that. We had Drew Peterson's attorney on here, and Drew Peterson's attorney is probably. I mean, Drew Peterson is probably guiltier than sin. He's probably shouldn't be walking the earth, but the system let us down. And that's what I'm hearing. The system was broken at that point.
Right. I'm all for what you're doing,
yes,
Dennis. But the bigger issue is, should these people, maybe they should wear a bracelet for the rest of their lives. Maybe you should.
We've talked about that issue. There's a cost issue with that. That's something I have contemplated putting into the bill. That's something that we'll look to address. I think at least at this point, to deal with these individuals being released back into the community, I talked to Patricia Rosenberg, and also Andrea's friend, roommate at the time, Michelle Feldy, was with me. And I think the bigger picture for this is to put other people on notice as to who they may be involving themselves with. Mr. Boulay got out; he was 32 years old.
Right, well, you can putting a bracelet on somebody. Everybody knows you always are tracking them. You know where they are, and you can give everybody notice. Literally,
but
to get notice now, you have to actually go online and check the registry.
Well, that is true. It's the same thing with sex offenders, and at some point we may, we may revert to a GPS system. There,
right.
As I was saying, there are numerous cost issues with that. Who would pay for the cost? As you know, the state is in fiscal turmoil at this time, and even I'm sure that this will become an issue just for the Illinois State Police to put together this database and to maintain the database, because believe it or not, we had statistics from the Department of Corrections that right now there are 700 people on parole for first-degree murder, and there are about 3,100 people still in the Illinois Department of Corrections that were sentenced prior to June 19th of 1998 for first-degree murder.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some very chilling statistics.
But there also may be individuals who have committed murder that have come in here from other states that have migrated.
And one of the things I did point out is this registry would require those individuals coming in. I used Idaho as the example, nothing against people from Idaho, that if we were to take in somebody from their parole system, that they would also be added onto our registry, because those are the types of people who can even slip into the communities undetected, even more so than people like Justin
So
Boulay.
this would really kind of have to be a federal registry.
Well, I'm not sure if that would be a federal, because what we're looking at and how to monitor these folks to start with is as they're in our parole system, which we still can monitor and add them on before they leave, and as they're getting out of the Department of Corrections going on parole. Mm-hmm. One of the issues we've dealt with sex offenders is what happens after they're out of our confinement, being parole or in custody. And one of the things that Sex Offender Registry has been working on, I've been working on with the state police, is if they have contact with the criminal justice system again or are served an order of protection, they then would be required to register in the system, because there are already people who have been processed out of the system that we would not be able to find necessarily, because they could have died, they could have moved out of state, they could have moved out of the country. So it's a matter of trying to use the resources that we have to get as much data as possible with these individuals first before we try to expand the database. But, at some point, you may want to have a database for everybody, depending on what the types of crimes are, and that's also been something that's been discussed in Springfield for the 4 years that I've been there. Mm-hmm. It's all public information, so all these people, if you went to the Cook County or Kane County or DuPage County courthouse, you would be able to look on computers and see what people have been convicted of. It's a matter of how does one of my constituents access this information if they're unable to physically go to those locations.
Yeah, Representative Rebelletti, we have one of our callers, Matthew, and if we inform you this is a call-in show, but one of our callers, Matthew, would like to ask a question regarding this topic as well.
Sure.
Matthew, can you join us?
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Matthew. How are you?
Good. Representative, I don't know if you know this, but this is a Elgin radio station. Pretty much. And they had an attorney here who for a while was representing Brian Dugan.
Yes.
Who was convicted of murdering a little 10-year-old girl.
Everything that guy was convicted of. Horrible.
But the problem was they prosecutors, the Page 7, I think they called them, because they had falsely prosecuted, I guess, for lack of a better term. They weren't convicted, but that's what they were charged with, another person. And I understand the politics of it a little bit. George Ryan, who was a former Speaker of the House, gave pardons for everybody off of death row, commuted sentences. The current Speaker, Madigan, is for strict rules, for instance, forcing videotape.
Matthew, could you get to your question?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
We're just short on time, so if you could get to your question, we'd appreciate it.
I'm just concerned. Like I said, we had somebody in Elgin here that was representing Dugan, but there was a story before Dugan, and I'm just cautioning that there's a problem in our system with false convictions and no transparency in the prosecutor's office.
Okay.
Matthew, thank you for your comment.
Thanks for listening.
I'm not pro-murder.
Yeah, no, thank you.
All right, yeah, there wasn't really a question for you there.
No, but I kind of agree with what he said, that there's a problem with the system, Representative, and if a guy's going to kill or rape somebody, he's going to take advantage of the system, and if there's a loophole in the system, the legislative is to close those loopholes in the system.
Right.
Right. I think he also was concerned about false convictions, and somebody who's been a prosecutor for 8 years. We address every case. You want to make sure that whether you're convicting of a speeding ticket all the way up to capital punishment, you want to make sure that you're prosecuting the right person, that you have all the evidence you need to sustain that burden of proof, and that it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And you want to make sure that you're doing that all throughout the system, and whatever we need to put in place as a legislature to accomplish that is something that I fully support. And I serve as the Republican spokesperson on the Criminal Law Committee, so we do try to look at those things on a yearly basis.
Are you getting opposition to this law? Is there an opposition? You said 236. I know there's like 7,000 bills floating around on that.
Yeah, it's House Bill 263.
Okay.
We have not had any opposition. I've had contact from a lot of my colleagues from throughout the state that are extremely supportive of it. I just talked about the fact that there may be some cost issues, and I always just talk about that with the media, so that as I'm going to ask your listeners if they would be willing to contact their legislators in the Elgin area out there, in Kane County area, and Cook, that you've talked to them about this particular issue. I'll be making the rounds to them, but it's always good that, as we say, you put a face on the issue. I know Miss Rosenberg is from the Batavia St. Charles area, which I know you guys probably cover.
Oh, yeah.
And that I've already, a lot of my colleagues have already been receiving emails and phone calls from people throughout the state, and so we're hopeful that we can begin this. We've had coverage from throughout the state. I've done interviews elsewhere to encourage people to support the legislation, and I'm hopeful that we won't have any opposition, and it's something that we can put together in a bipartisan manner, because I think public safety is a bipartisan issue.
Is there a website? I'm sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, I just had one question, and I want to be clear. I support your position on this, but what do you say to your folks or the people who might oppose this, who say to you that this is these people have served their time, and putting them on a registry really is like giving them a modern-day scarlet letter?
Well, I can appreciate that position. I will also tell you that this has been litigated with the sex offender registry, saying that this is an ex post facto type of sentence. This is something that's occurring after the fact of them serving their debt to society. It's public information, again, so we're only posting public information.
Sure.
This registry would go for 10 years. It's not a lifetime registry. I know there are sex offenders that are required to register in a lifetime, for their lifetime, so this would be something for 10 years, and then they would be off the registry.
But it's still an additional sentence.
Yeah,
sure.
So to speak.
We got to cut them off.
Yeah, we
got to go.
Thank you so much for taking time with us. We've run out of time here, though, today.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Take care.
Representative.